Hello everybody and welcome to the Sunday Show, the only prime-time television program presented to you the political turmoil and geopolitical turmoil that happens in the space of Eastern Europe. And tonight we will be discussing at least two important events that glued the eyes and ears of Ukrainians while they were unfolding. I think that the first one is going to be the formation of the United Ukrainian Autocephalous Orthodox Church, and we have today two very important guests, every one of whom will have their word, their say in due time. And first, I am addressing Professor Ludmila Pavlov. She is the head of the Ukraine's National Academy of Sciences Religious Studies Department. All this talk about the formation of the United Orthodox Church in a country which is secular, is it political? Is it really so important for the majority of people, even those who do not go to the church?
At first, I would like to say good evening for everyone. And yes, I am happy to be involved in discussing the results of this unification or United Council, which was happening in Kyiv, in St. Sophia Cathedral yesterday. It's a historical day for Ukrainians and even for those who are not believers or maybe the members of some Orthodox churches, because this is historical time for us. I think that we finish our process of identification, and we began like a state, like a politician nation, but we finish like a spiritual nation. So to have an independent, autocephalic church in Kyiv, in Ukraine, this is a dream of many generations of Ukrainians.
But we already had independent churches.
Not in full understanding and in the full form, because we have three. We had three churches before yesterday, and only one of these churches was recognized by the Ecumenical Patriarchate and the all Orthodox churches in the world. But from the 15th of December, now all Orthodox believers from all Ukrainian Orthodox churches are recognized by the Ecumenical Orthodoxy churches.
Why we waited for so long?
I think maybe we will not be ready for this very important step in our history. Because I remember my talking with the Metropolitan Volodymyr Sabadan several years ago, and I asked him about is the church is church ready to unite with other Orthodox church, and I received a positive answer, but he noted that time that not the people, not the believers, they are not ready to unite. So I think thanks to our three revolutions, especially thanks to the last of them, the revolution of dignity, this is a great time for our understanding and for our identification process. I think many Ukrainians understand that it's important to be independent, not only political or social or economic sense, but in spiritual and religious one.
We can see on the screen shots from the St. Sophia's Square in front of St. Sophia's Cathedral, It is estimated that something like 35,000 people gathered there in waiting for the result of the Unification Council, and many of them came to Kyiv from far places in Ukraine. I don't think that the St. Sophia Square has seen so many people since the burial of Patriarch back in 1990s, or maybe even more came there. And of course, we remember that attempt to unite. Why did it fail?
You are right that we have some attempts to establish the independent autocephalic church, which will be recognized by the Ecumenical Patriarchate. But only now, as we say, the stars stand in a special order, so we could combine the internal and external reasons and conditions, and now our wishes, the believers and the political wishes of our political state leaders unite, and we have the results. We have the independent church in Kyiv.
We have the proclamation of the independent church in Kyiv, I would say.
Yes, you're right, because we wait for Tomos, for a special document, for a special paper, maybe, we could say, where we have a sign and a stamp from the Ecumenical Patriarchate.
My next question is to Anna Babinets. She is an investigative journalist from Slidstvo.info. Speaking about internal reasons for getting the unification at this very time, how would you connect, or maybe you would reject the supposition that this is connected to the unfolding presidential campaign?
Actually, I think that it connects with presidential election. I think that now President tried to use everything to do everything for being attractive for Ukrainian people. For sure, he didn't answer for today's press conference for direct question about if he will run for next election, if he will be a candidate. He said that we'll see, but I see...
And we will see,
yeah,
of course.
Yeah, we will see for sure, very soon. But I see that it's part of this election running, I think so.
Some people know that Mr. Poroshenko has stalled for some time until he started to deliver on his promises. And of course, maybe he did not openly promise at the very start of his presidential career that we will have an independent and united church, but it was somewhere under the tones for quite some time. At the same time, we've been hearing about the rise in the aggressiveness of Russia towards Ukraine. In this relation, how do you think, will the unification of Ukrainian Orthodox Churches give an impetus to this rise of aggressiveness of Russia, or will it probably be a warning sign? Ukrainians are now more united than ever.
I think that anyway we should. I think that we will have Russian aggression again because we will have this presidential election campaign for sure, and I think that these things around Ukrainian church could be like new things for Russia for being aggressive. I think that could be. I'm not a very good expert in this stuff, but I usually work with investigations, but I think that it could be new things for...
You have almost preempted my next question, because it is connected to your specialization as an investigative journalist, and you have investigated into Mr. Poroshenko's activities and other state leaders. How do you think such acts and actions as reaching the visa-free regime or providing for the unification of churches in Ukraine and some other rather popular, if contradictory measures, help to improve the image. Do people tend to forget about accusations, some of them quite well proven, in the face of such achievements?
I think that for some people in Ukraine and mostly for people in Ukraine, it's very important things which is happening for these days, for sure. But for people like me, for journalists, for activists, we have very big question to presidents. What's going on with murders of journalists, with murders of activists? I don't remember that we had so many attacks, so many murders of journalists or activists in previous years. I think that this is part of presidential responsibility. When we ask him directly, who killed Pavel Sheremet, who killed Katerina Gandziuk, he, in the last press conference, in a previous press conference, he usually says, I would like to wear the same T-shirt like you have, because I have the same questions like you have. Yes, but you have more power. For example, today when my colleagues from Hromadske asked President about investigations of murder of Pavel Sheremet, what's going on? It's more than two and a half years ago Pavel Sheremet was killed, and he said that I don't know what I can do. If you have any advices, he said, journalist, I can do something for making the process more transparent. And we don't forget that after our investigation, after our documentary about killing Pavel, all all court records were closed. So now we even can't follow what's going on in the case. So at least this, Mr. President, maybe we should open again. We should, as journalists, we should follow what's going on in this case. The same story with Katerina Gandziuk.
We will come back to these questions after we watch what passerbys in Kyiv streets answer to the question what they think about the unification of churches.
Моторська, так. Сьогодні стільки автобусів з людьми приїхали. Ви, до речі, читали, що декілька автобусів з примусом.
Ні, з примусом ніхто не приїхав. Наверху теж западні, вони теж люблять нашу Україну. От, ну хто б мене заставив? Мені 60 з лишнім лет, і оце я пенсія. Я з великим желанням. Я тобі скажу, у мене вдома собачки. Я дуже переживала, думаю, це ж на неділю, на тиждень задержиться. Я переживала, думаю, накрутиться, голодні будуть, а за метіль завірюха. І Господь дав, у нас там снігу нету.
А ось чому ви подолали такий великий шлях?
Чому? Бо ми патріоти, ми стоїмо за свою державу, за віру, за єдину церкву, це наші прадіди боролися за таке. Сьогодні вже воно, слава Богу, відбувається реально.
А скільки обійшлась поїздка приблизно?
Нам безплатно.
Безплатно. А хто ж тоді заплатив?
Не знаю, не питали.
В інтернеті є такі чутки, що автобуси не тільки люди за власним бажанням їдуть, а й примусово.
Ну, не знаю, в нашому автобусі всі добровольно.
Дякуємо.
Можете зайти спитати.
А розкажіть, будь ласка, як ви ставитесь до створення єдиної помісної церкви?
Ну, ми її дуже підтримуємо, приїхали підтримувати створення єдиної помісної церкви.
Розкажіть, будь ласка, з якою метою сьогодні приїхали до Києва?
Ну, звісно, на собор.
У чому ви бачаєте вашу необхідність сьогодні сходитися?
Ну, це молитовна підтримка в першу чергу. І я хочу, щоб моя присутність так само обумовила присутність самого Христа на цій площі сьогодні.
Чутки ходять в мережі про те, що сьогодні автобусами люди приїжджають не тільки з власної доброї волі, але й примусом, аби для кількості.
Я чутки не можу коментувати. Я сюди приїхав з особистого переконання.
Ми приїхали підтримати нашу Україну, нашу церкву. Подолали великий шлях. І я думаю, все буде добре. Ви знаєте, в мене є знайомий священник, який мені запропонував, і ми відразу погодились. Звичайно, така подія в житті України, цього не можна пропустити. Бо ми українці, і ми повинні єднатися, і це дуже важливо. тим паче в ті часи.
As almost always in Ukraine, when massive events happen, there are rumors and allegations that people were somehow made to come. We will, of course, come back to this issue in our reminiscences, and truth will out in the end. However, my next question is to Professor Ludmila Pavlov, who is a specialist in religious affairs in Ukraine. Many people say, and you have said, that now the Ukrainian Orthodoxy is united. Still, there are some parts of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, for instance, who prefer to go towards the Greek Catholic Church. And of course, there are some parishes and dioceses of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Moscow Patriarchate who did not take part in the Unification Council. What do you make of this?
We begin from the maybe paperwork. We have a decision, the collective decision of those who decided to unite to this local Orthodox independent church. But we have, you're right, some parishes and some bishops who did not agree with this decision. And I think, as President promised us, and even Patriarch Filaret told some days ago, that nobody would, with some forces or maybe influence on those people who did not decided to unite. I think that this process must be and have to be very free, and we need to ask ourselves, would I like to be a member of this church or not? Would I like to unite to this a new church? We understand that this is a new church and we only begin this process. And we have a great task to build a church of new model, the model of 21st century, not the post-Soviet model or maybe synodal model. I think that this church must be, like we see, the open orthodoxy. And we could achieve, we could involve the traditions from the West and from the East, and we will be open for all, for different influences from different churches. And I think that this process will be very long, because we have three different traditions of religious life. We have three different statutes. And now we need to find a common foundation, a common values for these new churches, for new church.
Well, we will see, of course. Anna Babinets, what do you make of the fact that President Poroshenko has actually started today's press conference with referring to the unification? Do you think that it is an argument enough to tell people that this is the most important thing now?
Probably that's an important thing, but I'm not sure that it's the most important. But for sure, it depends on point of view. Yeah, I mean, because for me, as I mentioned, more important it's freedom of speech, it's freedom of activism, it's working of police, or how they do their work, how people in Ukraine can, if people in Ukraine can believe, can trust in justice, that if something happens, they can get like true answers for things which happened. For me, it's the most important, for sure.
We will continue to discuss this after we have seen what the President had to say about the Tomos.
The question of autocephaly is a question of our Ukrainian national security. It is a question of our Ukrainian statehood. We are finally building our spiritual independence, which can be compared to the achievement of our political independence. We are breaking the shackles that bind us to the empire. We are returning to our path determined by God and going our own way. I address you all directly, the participants of the Council, to the hierarchs of the Church. This is a colossal responsibility which lies before you in these hours. The state has done everything it can, but now Ukraine's future depends solely on you, the future of our great nation, our state independence.
So, many journalists have foreseen that Mr. Poroshenko will start his yearly press conference with alluring to something that he can actually boast of. But what were the questions that he tried to avoid?
For sure, it's questions about unsolved crimes, big crimes. As I already mentioned, these crimes about murdered journalists, Pavel Sheremet, about killed activists from Kherson, Katerina Ganzuk, about general prosecutor, why he didn't let him go, about Lutsenko.
And what was the explanation?
He didn't answer. He just said that general prosecutor was very powerful, and now it's not so powerful. So, and he didn't answer why he didn't.
So he may stay no matter what.
Yeah, and he didn't want to answer for question about Lutsenko, about why he didn't let him go. And then about connections with Russia, about Mr. Medvedchuk, about Novinsky, about this strange things about people in security service whose families have Russian passports, about this strange, not comfortable things for president. He didn't want to answer, and for sure he didn't want to answer for question about his plan if he will be candidate in next campaign.
During the term of Mr. Poroshenko as president, there were quite a number of scandals connected to his activities. Just to remember, his promise to sell his business, and he actually did not sell it. His promise to be a man of the people, and suddenly he goes to the Maldives for his vacation in one of the very tense moments in Ukrainian history, and some other things as well, including the appointment of his cronies to many responsible positions. Do you think that in the run-up to presidential elections we may see something that journalists have stalled to publish? Is there something that can harm Mr. Poroshenko's positions, and maybe one of the reasons that he does not say, I will run for the presidency?
Actually, a very good question. I don't know. I would like to see if something is it, but for me, a lot of things which happened during Poroshenko's presidential term happened which already destroyed him. I mean, this offshore scandal, because as you remember, one of his promises during 5 years ago was to stop offshores, just this anti-offshore campaign.
To tell you more, I actually believed him.
Yes, everyone believed, because
not everyone,
I mean, a lot of people believed him that 5 years ago many people changed and many people wanted to be better than they were before. And for me it was normal. It was things which people wanted to be better, so I thought that he stopped to be a businessman and he started to be president. He started to work for state. I mean, I think a lot of people believed him. So I don't know anything about some big hide things about president which can destroy him. Probably something from Russia, maybe, I don't know. But for me, a lot of things he promised and he didn't do, and it's very bad for his reputation.
Russia is, of course, one of the key words in what Poroshenko is saying now, and there are big boards on the streets of Kyiv and other cities saying, "Away from Moscow," which actually was a slogan of Ukrainian democratic nationalists back in 20s, 1930s, something like this. Suddenly he takes this up from our history, and then also we are going our own path, army, religion, and language. What do you make of this?
I think that one of the line of his campaign, I'm sure that he will be part of this campaign, he will run, will be Putin or me, Putin or Poroshenko. If not Poroshenko, others are Putins. I mean, it will be one of lane. And about if you talk about this army, language, of the things, it's pretty, I don't know how to say, it's very important for everyone. Church, army, language, yeah. Three positions. It's very important for everyone who wants to think that he is patriot, he or she feels like patriot. So I think it's important things, but I'm not sure that they are like full of some sentences. I mean, okay, we know a lot of things which happened with army for last 5 years, but mostly they happened thanks to people, thanks to volunteers, and to activists. They started a lot of process. That's good that partly that process were supported by state, by departments, by ministries. That's good, but mostly they were started by people who wanted to who wanted to protect our country. Language, I don't think that we have big problems with Ukrainian language for last years.
About some people have problems with the Russian language.
Yes, but I don't think that is big question for last years, our language. I mean, a lot of people who speak Russian, who speak Ukrainian, if they are patriot, it's not big conflicts for last years. Church, yes, it's important. Now we can see this process which are happening right now. It's important, yes. But partly the things, they are empty. I don't know.
We actually started our discussion with the church issue today, and it happens so that we are finishing with the church issue, and this gives me another opportunity to address the specialist in this studio. We know that the Tomos, or the decree that actually confirms the status of the Ukrainian Independent Orthocephalous United Church, will be issued on the 6th of January,
yes.
Which in Orthodox church, terms is a very, very important day.
Because this is holiday for believers. This is the Christmas day for those who belong to the Eastern Christianity. We do not change our calendar. Maybe in future we decided to unite to the European tradition, and we could unite and we will celebrate all church holidays together. But now it's very symbolic for us, and we need to use this chance, because I'm not sure that we have such possibility if we could not use this chance now, nearest time.
I'm sure that issuing the Tomos will be accompanied by huge celebrations in Ukraine. So tune in to Hromadske International. We will be following these events very closely. And of course, if you want to know more, tune in to our social networks. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. With this, from all the team here in Kyiv, goodbye.